this meeting is to assist with recording, record keeping, and perhaps to be broadcast at a later date. If you're unhappy with this, please leave the meeting now. All right, thank you very much. So we can begin now. Okay, may I welcome you all to the meeting. Are there any apologies? Well, Mrs. Sarah Hatzel is absent. It's not her fault, though. I'm not going to record her as absent. She changed her plans to go on training, so there's a clash. Oh, Elva's just arrived. Also, Gethin Glyn has apologised. Tim Jones as well. Thank you. Declaration of interest. Anyone? Nobody? So we'll move on to the minutes. The other time when the Bryn Derw Trisarnau application was discussed, I declared my interest as clerk of the Community Council. Do I have to declare today again in order to be consistent? Well, I don't think that the fact that you are a clerk of the Community Council, you haven't come to, you were just listening to the discussion really, not voicing an opinion. So you do need to declare an interest again. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. So we'll go to the minutes, therefore. Anything arising from the minutes? Are they correct to begin with? Do you agree that they are correct? Mr. Chairman, I've got my hand up. I don't know whether you would treat the appendix as part of the minutes, but under item 6.1, the discussion on the Neath Robin Planning Permission, not a matter of being correct, but at the bottom of page 4, there is a sentence which begins, Dewi Owen addressed the Planning Committee. It's not clear there on what basis he was talking. Do you remember the protocol? We've got one speaker for and one against, and one speaker from the Community Council. But that isn't made clear what the role of Dewi Owen is in this context. And the second one then, there was discussion at the end of that item about having live broadcasts, and that isn't reflected in the minutes. And I think that Iwan said he'd look into the matter. I have two matters arising then, if I can come back after you've adopted them. Right, there are answers then needed to Dewi's address, Owen. I'll come in on the first point. I think that there was a little bit of ambiguity looking back at that committee. Dewi was addressing the committee as a community councillor, but I think that he was speaking as an private individual. But if he was talking as an individual, private individual, he shouldn't have been allowed to address the committee in the first place. There was somebody talking in favour of the application before him. So obviously there's a lesson for us to be learned there. We must make sure that if a community councillor asks to speak, we want to make sure whether he speaks as a private individual or on behalf of the Community Council. I think it's timely as well, possibly, to bring the protocol before the committee once again, just so that we can review it before it is adopted, and to make sure that everybody's happy with it and understands it. All right, thank you. I'll come in on the second point. That is, I think with the minutes, it's a summary of the discussion. and it's not a part of the discussion about the decision itself. And that's why it's included in the minutes. But I can update when on the situation with broadcasting over the internet. We have got a license with the tool system, which enables us to have up to 100 people. So, considering that we think between 35 and 40 places for members' offices, etc., we foresee that we can offer to have an audience of 60 to 65 people. We have held a test and it appeared to work well, and we want to trial it once again before we move forward live with the system, with translation as well, to make sure that there are no problems with that. We will need to register, but you can before you turn up, because of the cap we have of 100. If it becomes apparent that more than 100 want to attend, then there is a way, I believe, to extend the number, but the rest of the audience would be able to keep up with what happens anyway by looking at the broadcast, which goes out a few days later. So that concisely is the update which we have on how to move forward. We hope that we'll be able to move forward live in the near future. Right, thank you very much, Ewan. Owen? Yes, I'm quite happy with that, those explanations. I don't think, I don't know if we need to make a formal declaration that we move on to broadcast on the net as soon as possible. Is that acceptable? If you want to raise that under matters arising, we're on whether the minutes are correct at present, of course. Okay. Looking at the rules and regulations, it was suggested by John that we look at these again as a committee. Well, the protocol for the planning committee. I've had a look at the protocol, and hopefully we'll bring it to the committee at the end of June, the next one, to review it. Right, thank you. Anyone else want to raise anything from the minutes? Or does anybody propose that they are correct? Edgar? Win? Anybody seconding? We'll second with those additions. Anybody want to raise anything else from the minutes? Can I raise another matter on those items? I've looked again at the broadcasting on the internet on our website, and there are two things which cause me a little bit of concern. In presenting these items, it was mentioned that Councillor John P. Roberts was talking on behalf of the local member. There's no such thing as local member in the context of the planning committee, and I think we need to make that clear. The system is different in Gwynedd Council, where there's an opportunity for the local member to speak, and I don't know what the situation is in Conway, but certainly there's no special status within the process of making decisions for local members who are not members of the planning committee. And secondly, what concerned me was that somebody had the impression perhaps that some members had made up their mind on similar items to this before reaching the committee, and I think that we all need to be quite careful that we don't see what is called predetermination. Predisposition is all right, but any suggestion that you were there to speak on behalf of a particular application, in my opinion anyway, goes against the process. And if it were different, and a member spoke against and the application was allowed, it would cause a legal challenge. That is just something for us all to think about, following those two comments as we move forward. Thank you, Owen. Do you all agree that we confirm the minutes? Anyone against? I see nobody. Can I propose, therefore, that, well, Owen and Edgar has proposed and seconded, or the other way around. We'll go on next to the first then here, down at the list, Llyn Tegid the Bala. Can you all hear me? And I'll give my presentation. Right. So this is an application from Natural Resources Wales to do work to Llyn Tegid and the river. The lake has been registered as water reservoir, and there is a responsibility on Natural Resources Wales to ensure that the dam is safe. The development, the main part of the development has been upgraded, and you've got the River Dee there, and also the alleviation scheme is part of the intention. This is a summary of what they intend doing. Can I speak? If I can cut across you. Is there a presentation to come? Yes, isn't it on the screen? No, all we can hear is you talking. There's nothing on the screen. So I can see John and Jane's hands up, and I think they were going to say the same. Yes, if I can just come in there, if I can may. Also, another thing, I think, what would be best, I think there's a speaker on this application as well. I think it would be better for the speaker to come in at the beginning of the discussion so that you can hear what Sarah has to say in case she wants to respond to their presentation, and then after they finish speaking. So if we can bring the speaker in now, is that possible, Rob, if the chairman is happy with that? Yes? I'll allow the speaker in now. Do you want me to begin again? I haven't. Can you all see my presentation now on screen? Yes. I think it would be better if you started from the start, please. Yes. Sorry, I've had technical problems. Right. The speaker has arrived. So this is a project to do work on Llyn Tegid. It's been registered as a water reservoir, and this we want to make sure that there's long-term safety there. National Resources Wales are the applicants, and the intention is to upgrade the rock armour protection to the front face of the lake embankment, and also reinforcement of the back faces of the lake and the River Dee, River Dyfrdwy, and there as well is a mitigation scheme as part of it as well. And you can see here, this is a summary of what the scheme hopes to do. And I'll give you a few photos of the site. There was a site visit here about a month ago by members, and we walked along here, and this is the River Dyfrdwy, River Dee, and then here is the site by the lake, and you can see the work going on there. And here is so this is where the trees have grown, as you can see, as we go on towards the leisure centre. And these are the trees on the public footpath. And this is the pumping station, water pumping station here, not far from the leisure centre. And you can see the leisure centre here. And here, the trees are growing amongst the stones there. And also, this is the overflow parking for the National Park, which is a part of the scheme. So this is just a summary of the relevant policies, which are also in the report. So the report will consider several things, and I've put the main considerations down there, and I'll go through these briefly now. The landscape and visual impact, which is one of the greatest impacts. So a full landscape and visual impact assessment has been submitted with the application as part of the environmental statement, and this report concludes that with mitigation, there will be no significant visual effects in the long term. Natural Resources Wales provides the authority with advice on landscape matters, and officers agree with their conclusion in their consultation response that once the mitigation is established, the overall effect of visual amenity will be minor to negligible in the long term. Due to the importance of the mitigation to offset any adverse impact on visual amenity, the delivery of the mitigation sites will have a detrimental impact on the habitats. We move on to ecology. Then parts of the site are located within the Llyn Tegid SSSI, Afon Dyfrdwy SSSI, etc. As you can see there, shadow HRR assessment has been submitted, and the authority's ecologist agrees with its conclusion in that the development would not result in any adverse effect on the integrity of the designated sites. Then conditions are proposed to ensure that disturbance to protected species is minimized. And then taking the above into consideration, subject to appropriate conditions to secure mitigations, is concluded that the proposal will not have an adverse effect on any designated sites of detrimental impact. One of the more controversial elements of the scheme is the loss of existing trees growing along the bank there. It means losing about 290 trees, mostly along the Llyn Tegid embankment. Most of the trees to be removed are of moderate to low quality, with a high proportion showing signs of ash dieback. Conditions proposed so that the removal of trees is undertaken outside the bird nesting activity period, and that all works are in accordance with the submitted method statement and tree protection plans. Then, because of the proposed loss of trees, It is proposed to plant 3 trees for every 1 lost, which is quite substantial. I won't go into every one of these here before you, but well, a 300 long, 7-mile wide linear woodland edge planting strip located within the field to the rear of the Llyntegid embankment, that is essential for the development. We'll move on then. There are additional planting and biodiversity enhancements offered. 50,000 square meters of wildflower meadow on the banks of the Dee and Tryweryn, and then treatment, of course, of the Himalayan balsam and Japanese knotweed is another one. There are also intentions to make improvements to the area of the open space between Penllyn Leisure Centre and the Lakeshore Car with a new hard and soft landscaping. Then as well, improvements to seating areas, having 2 new seating areas along the Dee embankment. Another element is the railway trough, and the project includes a trough laid along the section of lake embankment where the potential railway extension would run. Then, while this does not form part of the safety project, its installation as part of this scheme would mean that only minimum work would be needed to the embankments and their strengths would not be affected if the railway extension does go ahead. Again, the trough in the short term would be filled and seeded and would not cause a greater visual impact to the top of the embankment at the end of the lake. So obviously the work will cause disruption to local residents and visitors. Then it has been noted that they hope to start the work in the summer of 2021 with the reservoir safety works completed by the end of 2022. Conditions proposed to control working hours and the submission of construction traffic management plan prior to the commencement of works. Also, there are plans also, well, there are local level agreements also proposed between relevant parties to minimize disruption through the closure of footpaths and to proposed events. The consultation, the application has been the subject of consultation. There have been letters and a number of site notices were positioned at various points along the application route. In addition, as major development of the application has been subject to a pre-application consultation process, and a report on this consultation accompanies the application. In addition to the responses received from statutory consultees, a total of 5 individual representations were received, which are summarised in the committee report. And we come to the conclusion. So the project has been subject to extensive consultation and engagement with stakeholders and interested parties prior to the submission of this application, including a pre-application consultation as part of this application. While it's acknowledged that there will be effects in the short term on ecology and the landscape, officers have concluded that these will not be significant in the medium to long term, and that with mitigation, the scheme should deliver both a robust embankment and significant biodiversity enhancements. One change there from the report, following on discussions and advice as well, is that we amend the recommendations following discussions with the legal department. As the vast majority of the mitigation scheme lies within the application red line boundary, we are satisfied that this can be delivered via planning conditions. To this end, it is proposed to alter conditions to number 10 to require the submission of copies of completed agreements with relevant landowners and a long-term management plan for the mitigation scheme prior to the commencement of the development. And the applicants have indicated their agreements to this. So the recommendation, therefore, is to approve the development subject to conditions, and I have noted them there, including the small change on the screen.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr am hynna.
Right, thank you very much for that. And as far as the speaker is concerned, you have 3 minutes. You are on mute. I can't hear. All right.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Hello, my name is Andrew Basford. I work for Natural Resources Wales, and I'm the project manager for the Llyn Tegid Reservoir Safety Project. The reason for the scheme is to ensure Llyn Tegid in y Bala can withstand extreme weather now and in the future. Recent storm events have shown that the lake's embankments give vital protection from flooding to the whole town. NRW is required to act now as part of our legal duty under the Reservoirs Act. By not carrying out these works, NRW is subject to enforcement, risking possible fines and criminal court action. The reservoir embankments will be strengthened by replacing the stone protection along the lake foreshore and by reinforcing the dry side of the embankments. This is to ensure that they can withstand wave action and have improved stability during extreme weather events. The stone replacement work will involve the removal of self-seeded trees, mainly ash, which are growing in and weakening the lake embankments. The scheme will mitigate the loss of trees by planting approximately 2.8 trees for every tree lost. This includes entering a management agreement for the establishment of a corridor of trees planted behind the embankment, between the Pentlyn Leisure Centre and the Bala Rugby Club. Over the past 2 years, NRW has been listening to local people and exploring ideas for wider environmental gains. Taking these comments on board, NRW will be improving footpaths for all abilities, creating new seating areas, enhancing the lakeside car park, and creating new hedgerows and wildflower meadows. NRW is also incorporating enabling works as part of the scheme to facilitate the possible future expansion of the Bala Lake Railway. Subject to planning approval today and the appointment of a contractor, works are expected to start this autumn and last up to 2 years. NRW will work very closely with the community to try to find ways to keep construction to a minimum. Working areas will need to be fenced off, footpaths will need diverting, and the first activity this autumn will be the removal of the trees on the lakeshore embankment. NRW recognises the huge environmental value of the area and its importance to the local community for recreation and for tourism. So finally, this Llyn Tegid Reservoir Safety Scheme will uphold this value and provide protection to the town of Bala for current and future generations. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak on behalf of NRW.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr chi, Mr. Basford.
Thank you very much, Mr. Basford. Before you go, we have some questions for you.
No problem.
Will the height of the barrier be lifted or raised at all. For the reason, if it is raised and the lake comes into this area, then that means that the Llanuwchllyn will be under more water. Will the embankment be raised at all?
Thank you for the question. We are not raising the embankments as part of the scheme. There will be local topping up to ensure there's a consistent crest level across the whole of the scheme, but there will be no raising to the embankment level. And the reason for that is, you know, we're not going to be increasing flood volumes within the lake. We're not changing the way the Dee is regulated, which is very important. And also we're not creating any increased flood risk to people and property downstream. So it's very much, you know, the most sensitive, best design we can achieve to ensure we're legally compliant without changing the way the hydraulics work within the system.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr. Yr
Thanks
ail
very
cwestiwn.
much. The other question, will you be planting hardwoods such as oaks and so on? And what is the size of the trees, please?
No problem. We will be planting native trees of Wales. So broadleaf will be planted, including sycamores and oaks, but they will be small in nature. The planting will be, effectively, sapling sizes to start with. So there will be a time period, a short to medium time period for those trees to mature. That, you know, compared to what's there now, but they will be native to the area. We will be procuring a specialist landscape contractor, as well as our main contractor, to work with us over this next couple of years to ensure that, you know, not only do we get the reservoir safety works completed to the standard that's legally compliant, but also, you know, working with the local planning authority, we make the most of this opportunity with the planting regime. So the detail is to follow, but we will take still off the LPA.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr. Dwi'n cymryd
Thanks very
felly.
much. So the oaks and beech will be planted. Can I add to talking about the park? Looking at the planning list, I don't think that the trees that are listed, they're not all native trees, and it's a mixture of tall and medium-sized and bushes. So, and there are also difference in space between the Conwy people go to the site. No, what I've seen and what we saw on the day, that these were small trees. The beech and oaks, the large ones weren't there. In terms of the size of the trees being bit, 60 centimeters, just up to your knees in height. These, to me, in terms of trees that are being established, these are the best sorts of trees in terms of the roots and the depth. In 10 years, we'll have a screen over the development, but in the long term, these are the best trees to install, and you want to plant the design. Yes, in terms of the car park by the lake, the trees are a bit larger, 150 centimeters in height. What trees are these? These again are native trees. So, but you're not talking about large trees such as oaks that are already there. Just trying to have a look. And I'm going to share a screen so that everyone can see it. Okay, thank you very much. This is it. This is the plan. the list of plants. Can you see list of plants going down? So it says here, these are small trees. You see at the bottom, it says oak, and then so there are some oak trees, individual ones. They're being scattered around the place all over. So there's also medium-sized houses, birches, that they are placed separately. It's not clear on the plan. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So can I ask Iridian a question? Why aren't the same standards being put in? The mixture of whips, the standards of the oaks. Sorry, Ivan. It shows these small trees are 60 to 180, but the 125 to 1250. So the standards are the right standards. They are, you can see the oaks at the back of the trees. Yes, so these are bushes. Are the subs under these large trees? Sorry, can you say that again? The subs, water suds, there's a lot of little standards being put in. They're just ready. I could ask Natural Resources Wales put this in the planning, in the plans. We can do that too. You know where the wood standards, yes, the tree standards, just to make sure that the roots aren't in the way. This could go in the plans, could it? Yes. Yes, you can add a line to this. Fine, thank you. Thank you for that, Yuan. Thank you, Pridian. No problem. I have another question. Have you finished? I'll just stop sharing the screen so you can see me now. One other question from Mr. Basford. The Town Council gave new benches which were damaged, and they were damaged over and over again. So having black plastic, they've not been vandalized. So can you ensure that this will be in place, please?
Absolutely. And may I just add, please, you know, the intentions of this scheme is to retain as many, going back to the trees, retain as many trees as we can. We're only taking trees out that we need to. And I think in respect of the benches, of course, you know, we want to work, again, I'll say it, with the local planning authority to ensure that we get the best, maximize this opportunity, work with the local community to ensure that we leave something even better for the community once we're finished. So this is very much driven by the reservoir safety scheme, apologies, but you know, we recognise the value that the area has for tourism, for businesses, for local people.
Thank you
very much, Mr. Basford. Well, now open to the floor. Does anyone to make a proposal? Yeah. Brian, and my hands are up. Brian?
Thank you, Chair. Mine is a question, not a proposal at this stage, and that was to do with the discussion on trees, and that was the sourcing of the trees. Are these going to be local provenance? Because that obviously is the direction that we should be going, and we perhaps should consider that being conditioned.
Pridian?
Yes, I support that. I'm sure that NRW will get woods from local sources, and I'm sure that we can ask them as a planning commission that support that. Could have that. Thank you.
Could we have that conditioned, please?
Yes, yes, no problem. Thank you very much. Owain? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Another question for Mr. Basford under a different thing. Owain, sorry, can I come in? I just, because the ordinary procedure is put in the presentation and press questions to the chair. So I'm sure it was possible to bring him back, Mr. Chairman. I thought we'd agreed last time that the procedure would be the speaker would remain through the discussions. Well, that was passed last time. Apologies then. So can we ask? So question coming to me now. Owain? Yes. Well, I prefer to ask the question directly to Mr. Basford, if I may, please. So 2 minutes to try and get him back. Sorry about that.
Ga i ofyn o ran trefn?
Can I ask in terms of procedure? I thought that questions only went through the chair, that those who represented. Yes, is that correct? Yes, that is correct. But Owain can raise the question with you, and you can pass it on to Mr. Basford. Can I come in now, Roland? Vidian? Usually we talk for time at 2 minutes and that's it. And he spoke for much longer. Are we changing the protocol? And the speaker spoke for 3 minutes. That's what happened. Okay, it's important to speak, to hold the meeting. Otherwise, we don't want the press to be all over this. Thank you. If I can come in on this, that's the decision that was made, that he should stay in to hear the discussion. Clearly, there's been a bit of untidiness. I'm sorry, I forgot about that decision. That it's worth what Ridian, if I could have any questions about the application. And coming back to Brian's question, there is a line, that little line that talks about local providence.
Saying they're going to be using local provenance for biosecurity reasons. So,
dim bosib cael diweddariad gan Rob.
Is it possible to have an update from Rob? There's no way of getting Andrew back, I'm afraid. I don't have any contact details for him. So I phoned and asked him to come back in. I'm sorry. I'll put my question to the chair, if it can be passed on. What I was going to follow was that Mr. Bosford said that there's up to 2 years of work on this scheme. My question goes to the local economic benefits. And I think it's a pity that Mr. Basford isn't here to give some sort of certainty about this, assurance about that. Anwen's hand is. I have a telephone number for him. Do you want me to try and contact him by phone? Yes, that would be helpful. To try to ask him to rejoin the meeting. Okay, 2 minutes. Do we want to a break for? Well, we're making this attempt. Yes, we'll do that. So a cup of tea or coffee. So come back at. So I just want details about the what the stones that will be used. So one's been locked and haven't decided which stones. Just want to know, there's a condition to decide on the sort of stones. That's part of the recommendation. How we have had an example of a sample of the stones, and I shared a picture of some of the stones in the package, but it is granite stone. So this is going to be included before the work is done for the authority in order to get that detail. I'm sure we want a hard stone. Yes, it will be hard. Can I come in? And when it's taking the minutes and it's trying to contact Mr. Basford. So I thought we were going to have a break for 5 minutes. It's not fair to Anwen that we continue to discuss while she's on the phone. I failed to get hold of him. I've left a voicemail. He's not answering. I'll try and get contact him. Sorry, he's just come back. He's must have heard me then. Can I ask Anwen as a question for the minutes? What sort of stones are going into the embankment? And the answer was that it would be hard stone, granite. Yes. What strikes the question? That is between Bala, a lot of Saluvion mudstones, and I know that it's advantageous to have local stones, but sometimes it's not good if you use it to do this sort of embankment. No, it is hard in nature, and also a lot of work is done in the background locally to find a local stone that is also hard. So, yes, hard. Owain. Is Mr. Basford back? He's coming in now.
Hello, Mr. Basford and Yola.
Hello, Mr. Basford's back. So I'm sorry to call you back, but there are quite more questions for you, Mr. Basford. You're on mute. We can't hear you.
I'm very sorry for that.
Okay, ga i ymddiheuro i Mr.
Can
Basford.
I apologise to Mr. Basford, but I think it's
No problem at all.
important that we hear his answer to this. During his presentation, he thought that the project would continue for up to 2 years. And path I'm after is to what assurance can NRW give us to maximise the local benefit economically? And could we look at the possibility of putting conditions or 106 condition that perhaps I'd like to hear Mr. Basford's opinion. Is the procurement policy of NRW allows us to maximise the local benefit, economic benefit as much as possible.
Yes, thank you for inviting me back in. So 2 years is effectively the time it's going to take for the landscape elements, the grasses to establish once we're completed. So if I just sort of split down the time frame firstly, the legal requirement to deliver this works is by the end of December 2022. So we see the bulk of the work being completed the back end of next year. What we do expect is there will still be some presence of NRW running into the spring, summer 2023 to effectively make sure that we get those landscaped items established, and that then forms into a management plan over successive years that will continue. We are doing that under 2 contracts. So the main construction contract will deliver the civil engineering works predominantly, and then we're also going to be having a landscape contractor to deliver the landscaped items that we've got within the planning application. So we feel that as part of the mitigation and the enhancements we've already included within the application, that we've not just satisfied the minimum, and we've really talked and listened to the local people and tried to maximise the opportunity. So we feel that the application in alone gives more than enough in terms of enhancements. That doesn't mean to say that NRW as an organisation wouldn't entertain working with others, and we definitely want to work with the local community to look at ways other partner organisations can can work alongside us. So we'd very much be willing to keep the door wide open for others to play their part. But procurement wise, we would most likely be expecting others to lead in that respect.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Na i derbyn yr ateb. Dwi'm yn
I
meddwl-
accept the answer. It's not complete, but we'll have wider discussion later on. Fine, thank you very much. Mr. Busford, if you want, you can stay or you can leave.
Happy to take any more questions or happy to leave.
Judith.
Judith, thank you. I just wanted to agree with what Owain said. I didn't quite think that the answer was totally complete in terms of the benefits for local businesses. Thank you. Thank you very much. Does anybody else want to talk? Or does anyone want to propose something? I can't see anyone's hand up. Is anyone making a proposal?
Could I possibly come in there in respect of Sandra Bassford here?
Okay, iawn.
I think
Okay.
ultimately, thank you. The ultimate benefit, can't forget is, making sure this reservoir is safe in the long term. And there will likely be some disruption during the works, and we're going to phase the works with our contractor to minimise and only, try to keep sections of the footpath open on its current footprint, but have to work with the LPA, with stakeholders and local organisations to minimise that disruption. So albeit I cannot give you all the answers at this stage, I want to give some reassurance to the committee that we want to maximise this opportunity. So it's continue to talk and discuss with the LPA and others, and ensuring the communication to local community and businesses is thorough over this summer, making sure we get the message out, we work with others, and to avoid any surprises once we start on site in the autumn.
Iawn,
Thank you.
diolch yn fawr iawn am hynna.
Thank you very much for that. John?
Na, mae'n dod i ateb ar y diwedd, achos mynd
Oh,
cwestiwn...
the question I was going to answer was how many businesses and local people will be employed on this. You want people to be, you don't want to have companies drafted in and no local benefit. I want to know how many local people who will get work in these processes. Mr. Basford.
That's a very good question, and we want to, employ local workforce, put money back into the community. We haven't got an appointed contractor, so we can't give a name as yet, but they will be based in North Wales, is very much the intention. Within the proposal, it also reflects on the costs as well. We want to minimise the cost of the to the public purse. So involving local labour is very much key. Welsh speaking is critical within the community, and also carbon footprint. We do not want to be employing workforce that has to travel miles and miles to get to site. So although I can't give you a specific number, we will very much be looking at maximising opportunities for local labour. And that also includes subcontractors as well. We're not just talking about the principal contractor. There will be specialist contractors underneath and support staff that we want to not just provide sort of workforce labour to the project, but also to take some ownership of the project as well, to have pride in the scheme. And we want to leave a legacy that it's something that people really really value and appreciate, that we've fed local people in, and very much looking at that as part of the contractor appointment.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr iawn am hynna. Alwyn.
Ie, diolch yn fawr iawn, Mr. Cadeirydd. Bod codi beth i dos Sara, dweud y gwir. Oedd hi'n sôn bod na wllwn amod cyfreithiol wedi bod yn y cytundeb wrth baratoi'r adroddiad yma. Dwi'n cofio agwedd rwan. Ond cwestiwn sy'n gen i, dweud y gwir, os oedd modd oedd i gyfaddawd ar fater fel hyn, pan bod yr amod mewn yn wreiddiol beth bynnag. Hynny yw, teimlo bod yw'r ffordd chwythig o'i wneud i dwi, ond eisiau atab tybad Dwi'n dall bod yna gyfadad wedi bod, ond y cwestiwn sydd gen i, sylfaenol sydd gen i, pam bod yr amod yna'n wreiddiol.
Y bwriad i roi y cytundeb cyfreithiol. Ia.
Ia.
Mi o'na bryder fysa, bydden ni eisiau sicrhau ydy bod y mesura lliniaru yn cael ei sicrhau bod hynny'n cael ei gwneud a bod yn y tymor hir bod...
was done in the long term, and that we would that's it. And we had further discussions on it with the legal department of the authority about the requirements, and it is possible to ensure this through a condition, and I don't know whether you want us to add something. Yes, can I come in on that? I think that, I don't know if compromise is the correct word. Usually we need legal conditions if there is something that happens outside the red line, outside the line of the planning permission, that all the alleviation work is within the red line. Therefore, there will be, well, without that can be managed by a planning condition. So there's no compromise in the scheme at all, but we are willing to have some guarantee that well, we can do that through a planning commission. So we had legal advice on that. So to make sure that the alleviation work would happen. Thank you very much. I'm beginning to now be satisfied with this scheme, and following that, I want to suggest, well, I want to move this recommendation with conditions, with alleviation conditions, and look at the species, etc. And I see the details are there, and local flowers should be planted on that piece of land, and trees which are over a metre in height. So we just need to make sure that that's done. Thank you, Ivor. Ivor has proposed that we allow this. Does anyone second? Owen, do you second? Yes, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for that. Following John's direct question, we were behind things in the first place, but I'm willing to second the proposal. The only thing, I just want a little word of further explanation, if you like, with our dig. That is the one with the long-term scheme. The reason that National Resources Wales is in this situation is that they had not done the work in the long term. And one, I want a little bit of guarantee that long term means long term for Natural Resources Wales. And secondly, is this scheme, does it include then the element of trees which are kept? And is there a commitment to look after those trees as well, so that it's not just a matter of planting new ones, but that we look after the trees which are there already as well? But with that explanation, I'd be willing to second the proposal. As far as the trees that are there already, I said this in my presentation, there is a scheme in place which will look after the trees that are there already. And that does go into detail how those trees will be looked after. So that will be a part of the permission. And then with a long-term scheme, I just take it that we're looking at 25 to 30-year period for the trees to mature. And I don't know if you agree with me on that time, but that's what we looked at as long-term. I'd like to add there, Sarah, that 25 years, well, gives time to try and have quite a rather nice woodland there. I think that's quite reasonable to ask, in my opinion. Right, thank you very much. Brian.
Thank you, Chair. Really a question associated with the length that we're looking at there, 25 years. Will that be included in the management agreement with other landowners where the planting is included? And the second point really is for John. If we've got the the management of the conservation works over a long period of time, has the authority considered scheduling when we would inspect to make sure that those conditions are applied over that period of time? Because I think if we're putting the condition on the applicant, it's beholden on us to have some system to make sure that that's adhered to in whatever way.
Yeah, just to answer the question, and
yes,
Brian.
Just to answer that question, Brian, thank you. There's no plan, specific plan in place to monitor the situation. Unfortunately, as any planning permission on any application, it's down to the resources we've got within the department. And we almost depend on people to raise things with us if there's a problem, and then we can get an officer out to look to make sure they conform, you know, and if they break any of the conditions, we haven't got the resources to monitor the scheme. Right, thank you.
Could I come back to the first point, which was the question of the length of the agreement with the landowners other than NRW with regard to the maintenance plans and the conservation plans that we're asking them to put in place?
If I could just come in, Sarah. I haven't seen the agreements. We haven't seen the agreements with the landowners, so I can't answer the question. How long? I don't know whether you want to ask Mr. Bapton at all, whether he can share that information with us. Yes. Perhaps we can have the answer from Mr. Bapton to that. We have had a general discussion here. It's not usual to ask Mr. Bapton. It's up to you, of course. Yes, well, we'll ask one question to Mr. Bashford and then we'll go on with the programme. You're on mute, Mr. Bashford. We can't hear you.
No problem.
Okay.
Sorry. Thank you. So firstly, before I jump into that, I just confirm NRW are the reservoir undertaker. So we have an interest in this site long term to make sure it's inspected and maintained. So by being a reservoir undertaker, we have a legal duty to make sure that we inspect and maintain and carry out works in the future on the scheme. So that's important to say. In terms of the agreements we have with third parties, we are talking about the terms of the agreement are still to be absolutely signed, sealed, but we are within that agreement looking at the long term. So although I can't share the exact details of each agreement on this call, we are entering into those agreements, considering the long term, and it's in our interest as well as, you know, as a public environmental regulator, public body, to ensure that those remain for the long term. So I want to give that reassurance to committee that we will be satisfying the conditions being placed on us. We will be working with the LPA, and we will not be commencing works until the LPA is satisfied.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you very much. I've allowed the discussion to go on a bit about this because cutting down all those trees are going to transform the view well, a lot in the years to come. Edgar? Yes, Mr. Chairman, I want to word with Iwan really, but I've lost you when Andrew Bashford began to speak. There was a problem with the internet. It's been sorted now through Penrhyn Day Drive. And I'm not to take part anymore, is that correct? Well, if you missed the part of the discussion, you can't take part. No, you can't. All right, I just wanted to make it clear. Thank you. I don't see anybody's hands up, anybody else's hand up, so I take it that we go to a vote. How do we do that, Iwan? Well, I suggest because of the size of the project and several, well, I think that we should go through a list of the members present is the best way and ask them for an individual vote one by one. We'll do that in that case. Iwan, do you want to ask? No, you ask. I shall record here the vote. Everybody is agreed on the vote. I'm in favour of the scheme. Alwyn? In favour? Anwen? In favour? Judith? In favour? Edgar? Elfed? In favour? John? In favour? Derek Capper?
Obliged.
In favour? Wyn? In favour? Ivor? In favour? Brian?
In favour.
Trish? In favour? Sarah not here. Tim not here. Owain? In favour? There we are. That's been passed unanimously. Thank you. So we'll move on to Bryn Berw Talsarnau. Aled? Can you see the presentation? Yes, we can. Well, Mr. Chairman, as members are aware, this application was considered originally before it was decided to defer on a decision to ask for justification about the scale of the proposal. Since then, the officers have held discussions with the agent to see what they can do. So it's a change of use of a part of agricultural building to relocate guns and ammunition sales business granted under the reference that you can see there, NP 577265A. The site is just outside the village, as you can see there, Talsarnau. The building is a part of an agricultural building. That's the site there. This is the access to the site here. And this is the building, a stable originally, where the business exists at present. So you can see there's a small shop selling guns there. And I'll show you a video so that you can see the site. So as you walk down here, you can, this is you can see this is going up towards the place which is subject to the application. So this is work has begun now in adapting buildings. He was doing that at his own risk. Over half a building there for an unit. Well, in the March meeting, it was mentioned, this was mentioned, and a detailed plan which shows that there is room. You can see there where the present shop is, which would increase by 7 square meters. The planning considerations are, well, development policies 24 retail, and this policy is clear to restrict retail development to main retail areas and within towns and villages. The location is in open countryside. And then with the detailed floor plan and justification statements that there are material considerations that may enable officers to determine an application contrary to the development plan policy in the circumstances due to the nature of the business, and that there is only a small increase in the retail floor area from that. As I said, they're increasing the floor area from 15 square meters to 22 square meters, and the existing permission is through a legal, the relinquishment of the existing permission through a legal agreement. No objections from statutory consultees. There have been letters of support. Since the report was published, we have received a letter of objection from somewhere below the site. They say that there is noise coming from shooting, so and that is detrimental to residents. So the conclusion, when we consider the full scheme, well, if he agrees to relinquish the legal application and having considered the assessment of planning matters, including the local national policies and guidance, it is believed that it can, and then you've got the conditions here, which are use in accordance with the plan, detailed floor plan, and hours of restriction of use. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Right, thank you very much. Does anybody want to propose, make or ask a question or anything? John? I propose the recommendation. Everybody seems happy with it. Gwynedd is happy, North Wales Police support it on safety grounds, so I don't see there's any problem with this application. All right.
John Gapper.
John Gapper.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, it seems to me that the applicant has addressed all the issues that concerned us last time, and I'm happy to second the proposal.
Thank you. Anwen? Yes, I support John that we accept this according to the recommendation, and I'm very glad that it's agreed upon and that additional work will be created in the area, and I'm very glad that it's been allowed. Thank you. Thank you, Anwen. Owain? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to agree with those comments and to congratulate the officers on being able to, on coming to an answer which appears to please everybody and overcome some of the concerns which the committee had in March. The only question I have about the restricting hours. Is it necessary and reasonable to restrict sales on public holidays, bank holidays? We have discussed the conditions with the applicant and his agent, and he has agreed to that. So he thinks the condition is acceptable. So, right, thank you. Right, I don't see any other hands up wanting to speak. We'll go to the vote, therefore, if you're all happy with that. I take it that's an old hand, Phil, is it? Yes. Well, I'm in favour.
Historical hand.
Alwyn Griffith.
Blaid.
In favour.
Anwen?
Anwen. In favour. Judith. Abstain. Edgar. In favour. Elfed. In favour. John. In favour. Phil.
Blaid.
In favour. Wyn. In favour. Ivor. In favour. Brian.
Abstain.
Tracy. Is Tracy with us or has she left? Tracy left us at 11:15. Thank you. Owain? In favour? There we are. That's been carried. Thank you. We'll continue to the next, which is in Llangywair. Who's taking this?
Thank you, Chairman. This is, to all intents and purposes, an update report for you. It's an application that was brought before you back in March 2020. I'll just share the screen with you. It's an application for a change of use of an outbuilding at Plas Llangywair in Llangywair near Bala. The application is for change of use to a single dwelling, 2 bedrooms, very small. Plas Llangywair is a listed building, so it's a curtilage building as a listed building. If I just show you, it's this building here, and this is Plas Llangywair. Nice outbuilding, redundant from its previous use. I'll just run through access onto the neighbouring highway. Proposal. Oh. This is the existing, and this is the proposed. So very little external alterations using existing openings. So the effect on the listed building is considered to be acceptable. 2 bedroom, very simple, no extension, and parking area and servicing. Complies with policies. In the agenda, we've got the previous report, which is begins on page 62. That's the one that was presented to you back in March 2020. The new report, which begins on page 59, is an addendum report. At the time in March, the applicant was willing to sign a Section 106 agreement and pay a commuted sum of somewhere just over £47,000. Since that time, the applicant has changed his mind and now wishes to sign a Section 106 agreement, affordable local occupancy, which obviously is more advantageous to the local community. With a payment of a commuted sum, the building would be lost to possibly second home or holiday home. But with the new 106 or the amended 106 that they're now requesting, it'll be for local person in need of housing and the affordability set in perpetuity. So it's really just an updated recommendation and seeking a resolution from members that you're happy with that, and we can then proceed with the updated Section 106 agreement. And the recommendation remains the same, to approve, subject now to a Section 106 agreement for affordability and local person and appropriate conditions.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr, Richard.
Thank you, Richard. Everybody's back now. Right, Brian.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question about the 106 agreement. Richard indicated they're in perpetuity. What happens if, and I'm not looking at 30 years' time, I'm looking at 5 years' time or 10 years' time, if the applicant finds that there is no local person requiring it, can that agreement be removed?
What happens with the terms of the 106 agreement is that there is, if it's advertised and nobody can fill it, it does sort of gradually become graduated down to open market, but on resale it goes back to the original terms, which is affordable local occupancy. But there is also a mortgagee in possession clause if it is defaulted. If the mortgage is defaulted, the mortgage company can then offer it as an open market dwelling.
Just for me to come in, Aruna hefyd,
just for me to come in on that as well, there is a kind of cascade of cases such as these, and if in the first place that affordable need is to be within a community council, where the community council, the Llangwar Community Council, where it is now, if they can't fill the house from that area, it goes to the nearby community council, which is one nearest to Llangwar, and it goes to the county, the whole county, if they can't fill it then from the community councils around Llangwar. So there is a kind of cascading effect. Yeah, that's right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Edgar? Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. I'm glad that this has, well, I take it that we go with the recommendation. I'm glad of this. Does anybody second the recommendation? Wynne, are you seconding? No, I've got a question, Chairman. Okay, a question. Following on from what Richard and John were saying now, of course, the applicants can come back at any time and ask for planning permission to change and to pay a sum, acknowledge sum in the future. Nothing to stop him doing that at all.
There is, Chairman, there is a minimum term that they can't do it within the first 5 years. That's set in statute, so they're not able to do that. But yes, they can certainly come back and ask us to change the terms to a commuted sum at a later date, and it will be down to us whether we agree to it or not. If the Section 106 still serves a useful purpose, then we can refuse it.
Thank you, Richard. I'm happy to second the proposal. Thank you. Does anybody else want to speak? If not, we'll go to the vote. I am in favour. Alwyn? Hello? You're mute, Alwyn. I'm abstaining. Anwen? In favour. Judith? In favour. Edgar? In favour. Elfed? In favour. John? In favour. Philip?
Blaid.
In favour. Wynne? In favour. Ivor? In favour. Brian?
In favour.
In favour. Wynne? In favour. Thank you. That has been allowed. Well, there we are with the planning. We'll go on.
Rhestr o achosion
Case list of cases 76, page 76. Is there anything that anybody wants to raise here? Page 76. Is and when yes. Something in general, in fact, number 5, Capel Garmon, as I understand, only 5 applications in a year, and 4 of them are here today. Is it, what's the reason for this? Is it our fault? What are the 4? Well, we have 1, 5. Yes. There are 4. And then number 14 and 4 in front of us today. You understand what I'm saying? Is there an answer for this? Sorry, I didn't understand the question. The question is, we only 5 planning applications that we've had during the year. I don't remember. Well, read the report. There are 5 during the year. 4 of us in front of us today. And 5, why people aren't trying for applications with them. There's something wrong, isn't there? There are only 5 trying and 4 of them are in front of us today. I don't know the details. Got the list today. I can't answer the question. Okay. So page 76. Mr. Chair, on number 12, Harlech swimming pool, the car park for parking overnight. The centre don't have any control over this because the place is open, and we don't know that people who's going, they're not paid. So I don't know what they can do to manage this. Put barriers or something to block the access to the car park. I don't know what the parkers can do. I know as a fact that it's not the blame of the director of the swimming pool. People aren't supposed to park there, but they do. And you see them everywhere. This morning, there's some in the car park by the beach at Harlech. I don't know, but certainly the ones by the swimming pool have been parking, the motorhomes. So I just want to bring this to your attention. Thank you for that. Page 78. 79, the hand up. Yes, my hand is up in the air. Yes. The Owain. Yes, Mr. Chairman. Number 19 on page 78, SIP World. I see that this is back to January 2020, and I know there's a bit of history on this site with a company doing things and then asking for forgiveness. I think how much discussion has been taken with Zipworld to get a better understanding of planning rules than has been the case in the past. Mr. Chairman, can I answer that? We set a bit of work. And I have been discussing this year that have drawn their attention to the planning rules that need to discuss in advance. Fine, thank you. Ivor? Yes. There are quite a few, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9 bucks caravans since we're here. Is in the pandemic, people trying to get money, people staying at home, they see an opportunity. How are they caught? Airbnbs, how they're caught. It's a general question. We can see a pattern. Jonathan, do you want to answer? I don't know if Jane wants to come in on that.
So I'm actually finding the translation, it's very, very faint. So you can see I've actually got my head straight back to my computer. So to try and hear it, I have raised the issue with Rob. Is it in fact you're just saying in terms of the additional, the number of sort of concerns that we're getting in regard to caravans?
I'll ask you a direct question then. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 10. Basically, there seems to be a massive increase of pods and caravan infringements. Is this a knee-jerk reaction to the pandemic and people are trying to take advantage because people are staying home and not going abroad? And are they getting caught by Airbnb? I'm just asking what the pattern is here.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, so since the pandemic and everything, that yes, there does seem to be an increase in number of concerns that we're getting. Just so during the time during lockdown, we didn't get as many concerns. But obviously, that as lockdown is relaxed, we are getting more concerns and we're getting more complaints from members of the public, and it's just a trend that we are noting. Obviously, we need to investigate them and take it forward.
Okay. Is there any way of preventing them, Jane, or?
And unfortunately, it's probably just getting the message out there in terms of that, you need planning permission for them. It's very difficult. Obviously, a lot of people think that you don't need planning permission for caravans. It depends on circumstances, and in each individual site, there's sort of different circumstances. There are permitted development rights and so forth. And it's just a case that we need to investigate each one individually to ascertain whether there is any permitted development rights there or whether it's a case that there is a breach of planning control, and look at those individual circumstances.
Is it worth us as a body marketing this on our own social media to make that message clear?
Potentially, absolutely, there is something, because it's say that it's a case that we are seeing an increase in these compliance cases with these particular aspects. So it's something that we could potentially look at taking forward and seeing whether we can do something and attempt to do something proactive.
Yeah, thank you, Jane.
Thank you. Thank you, Eva. Thank you, Jane. John? Thank you very much. So coming back to Harlech swimming pool, there's a car park there and many other car parks, and Aberdyfi, the same things in Cynllyn, people they're parking there. And how can we sort this out? The problem has arisen for a long time, but I see this picking on the swimming pool at Harlech isn't the right way of going about it. Can you contacted the county council? Is that what we want to do? Can I come in? I don't know if you can hear me. Yeah, there's so much work going on. We've received this complaint. We have had other complaints in other sites, so we're looking into this. Since we've received the complaint, we do the same thing if we received complaints about other sites too. Thank you very much for that. Wyn. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want information. You're breaking up. Can you hear me? Broken up. Can you start again? I'll switch off the camera. Can you hear me now? I was in a meeting with the community councils last night. They're aware of parking overnight, and it's a list of car parks that according to the app on the website, are suitable for parking motorhomes and caravans too overnight, and list situations throughout the country and Europe, including the park, of course, and on the list of locations, the resources that are there. And they encourage people to arrange in these places for weeks, for nights at a time. And the situation, so they can turn into an unofficial car park without planning permission, and people see this as acceptable to stay there for a period. I'm not sure what the answer is. That is something I've been worrying about, I think. Are we in situations, for example, there's a car park in half of the village, and suggestion was that's room for 5 motorhomes to stay there. Clearly, it's a situation that isn't what we want. I don't know what we can do about it, but it's something that raises concern, and is going to be worse this year. I don't know what the answer is, and I'm not sure who asked the question to anyone in particular, but I think we need to look at the situation and see if there is something we can do to prevent this. Thank you for that, Swin. Certainly, it is a matter of concern. Is it possible to send the website to the officers that you've seen listing people saying? I can, yes. Helen and Angela are aware of it. It's a bit late, but it's concerning that it gives some sort of justification to people to use these places, which is against. Okay, thanks. Jane.
So can I just add, yeah, that we are aware about this app that has been, and yes, we've been sort of discussing it with Angela and Helen with engagement. So it's something that we can look into. Obviously, sort of that will take up the resources, but we can hopefully between departments we can have a look at this, look into this further. Obviously, we'd have to sort of look at all the individual sites, and we'd have to ascertain as well whether there is a breach of planning control there in terms of what's sort of been undertaken, and whether there's an actual material change in terms of what the actual use of the land is. So that there will be sort of quite an element of work there that we'd need to be involved with.
Thank you very much. Is it possible to draw the government's attention to this, because it's a central problem, and people are advertising on the web, on the internet? All right, should we go on to page 79, 80, 81, 82, 83.
Yes, Chair, please. This is really a general point, but I see that we have, sorry, it's perhaps not the right one, but anyway, there's a general point which is to do with a question of expediency for proceeding to legal or other measures. I was wondering whether we had a policy in relation to that, and if so, when it was last reviewed and how we make that judgment. Because a number of the cases this week have been kind of written off because it's been decided it's not expedient to proceed, and I'm wondering how we make that judgment.
Are you talking about any specific ones? I'm not sure.
Not specifically. I just noticed it's a bit like the other trend. There seemed to be a trend this month of expediency not to proceed.
Chairman,
I think that Jane, yes.
I can answer that. Yes, there is. It's not a case that we just close cases. We do have a process whereby we actually carry out an assessment, and it's a not expediency report, and it's very similar to basic looking at basically like a delegated report when you look and sort of determine whether you'd grant planning permission or not. So we look at the expediency of that with the relevant policies of the area read local development plan and other sort of material considerations, and we make a decision in that way. So there is actually a report. So anything that you see where it says that it's been not expedient to take to take action, that we do have a paper trail that actually sort of advises as to how we've come to that decision.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Page 85, 86, 87, 88, 89. Chairman, are we closer with the Alwyn? We came to a decision yesterday. The appeal was permitted, so there'll be no further case going forward. The inspectorate has assessed the extension and they see that it is an acceptable extension. That it was in yesterday. I haven't read it in details myself yet. I will bring a report to the next planning meeting. Thank you. Page 90. 91. 92. 93. So we can go on to section 106, agreements for information. Any questions there? No. So we'll go on to agreements not where more than 16 weeks have elapsed. This is background for information. So these are delegated decisions agreed for information. On the last page, the Craiglanch in Aberdyfi, that is for information. Jane?
Yeah, I just thought I'd provide an update in regard to the appeal decision that was made. That we did actually recommend refusal for this on two counts in terms of Development Policy 5, and the fact that the proposed semi-detached dwellings were going to be situated within open space, and also the fact that the ecological concerns was the fact we had insufficient information to actually make an informed decision. Those were the two reasons for refusal that we put forward, and it was pleasing to see that the actual inspector has sort of concurred with both of those reasons. In particular, Caroline Wilson, the authorities ecologist, she put in a quite extensive and comprehensive statement to sort of substantiate the ecological concerns that we had, particularly in regard to the otters, and obviously the inspector in this instance has concurred with both the reasons for refusal in this instance, so it was a good decision. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Jane.
Thank you very much, Jane. There we are. We finished.